As the day broke on 25th February 2021, the bell at St. Andrew's Church in Chennai, fondly called the Kirk, marked 200 years since its doors opened to the world in 1821.
Hail the power of Jesus' name. Let angels prostrate fall. Let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal dawn.
A blind spot, and God says, obey. Abraham, go sacrifice your son. This son? My only son? Abraham went. Can you imagine that? He didn't even tell his wife. He went, he packed. You'll have to understand the emotion of it. Him telling his servants, collect the wood. Telling his son, we are on a journey tomorrow. 3 days later, we'll reach that place. He makes that journey, and every second it breaks his heart.
And his resurrection power gives me life. Blessed be the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Blessed be the Lord God Almighty.
2 centuries of God's goodness in the church and the community around. It was in 1818 the first minister, Reverend John Allen, sent by the Church of Scotland, laid the foundation stone for the edifice. And consecrated the church 3 years later. 51 ministers have served the Lord at the Kirk till February 2021. In 1983, Reverend David Singh became the first Indian presbyter.
This church is a blessing to this city for 2 centuries, where somebody had a small vision, and the faithfulness of God and the various presbyters and ministers of God over these 200 years. And we really thank God for how this church has journeyed, touching the lives of many. The church in its nature is supposed to be a place where people are healed physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I believe that this church has done that in this city, and through this church, lives of people around the world. And that's how I feel the journey is going to be even in the days to come. How great are his signs and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. So going ahead from generation to generation, we would like St. Andrew's Church to be a healing balm and the presenting of God's love to millions of people.
It all began with the Scottish community in Old Madras wanting a church for themselves, just like the English had St. George's Church in the city, now St. George's Cathedral. The East India Company too decided to add a minister from the Church of Scotland at all its establishments. The result? A series of 4 kirks across India, in Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, and Bangalore, each called St. Andrew's Church or the Kirk, which in Scottish means church.
There was a lot of Scottish influence, and over a period of time there was a considerable demand that there ought to be a separate church available for them to conduct worship in the method that they were familiar with. A kirk was needed. And with more and more Scots filling the government positions, and many of them also paying taxes by way of the businesses that they were running here, it became necessary to listen to what they had demanded. And therefore, land was allocated, and work thereafter begins on the construction of a kirk over here. At least in India, it was the Scots who formed the bulk of the people who came from what we today call the United Kingdom.
But there were challenges. The site chosen for the church was a marshy land on the banks of the river Chindatripeta or Kuam. The soil was loose, not the best place for an edifice of this size. But there were advantages. The price of the land was affordable, little less than 5,000 pakoras. The place was also closer to the garrison at Fort St. George and the esplanade. The elders wanted a circular church, so the design was adapted from the plan for the proposed London church, St. Martin in the Fields at Trafalgar Square. God brought the right experts. Major Thomas Fiott de Havilland, the architect, and Colonel Caldwell, the chief engineer, were handpicked to tackle the challenges. Havilland built a well foundation, an old Indian construction method in the place of the popular plinth foundation in Europe then. So they dug 150 wells, each between 14 and 50 feet deep, lined them up with bricks and baked rings, and filled them with sand and stones. Just 3 days after the steeple was built, there was heavy rain for nearly 30 hours. There was fear that the steeple would collapse, but like the Christian life, the church too stood on a strong foundation.
Tribe who specialized in digging such wells. They would dive even into the water and dig and then come back up for air along with whatever they had dug. And these people were utilized to dig these 150 wells. So the church is built, first of all, with these 150 wells draining the water down, and then with a 14-foot raft foundation. It's 14 feet deep and it's filled with masonry and stones. And the church stands on that raft. So even if the ground on either side still is prone to sinking or can get sodden, this raft remains firm. And it's on this that this church has stood for 200 years. So it was indeed an engineering marvel from those times.
The kirk is a fine blend of Georgian and neoclassical architecture. The entrance has an imposing Ionic order portico on a row of double columns. The dome, 51.5 feet wide, is held by 16 fluted Corinthian columns. The inner circle underneath seats most of the congregation. There's also a larger circle around the aisle. The dome was painted with lapis lazuli to reflect Scotland's azure or blue sky. Marble plaques in memory of chosen ministers, doctors, nurses, musicians, and soldiers adorn the aisle, some of them sculpted in England. The steeple, 111.25 foot high, is the tallest in Chennai, even taller than St. Martin's in London. It has 3 stories, a spire and ball. The first story is square with Venetian doors. The second, octagonal with columns. The third, circular with 8 Corinthian columns. The spire on an octagonal base is fluted and tapering into a pyramid.
So it's a blend of different styles that was brought in to make a very graceful interior for the church and a very graceful exterior as well. And the whole idea was to have something that is uplifting, because at the end of the day, we are worshipping in a church that is to kind of lift us into God's presence. That was the idea.
Built over 10,000 square feet area, it had cost £20,000. Certainly an architectural marvel, a masterpiece on a marshland for God's glory. The ravages of time did take a toll on the sanctuary. The dome suffered cracks, the roof leaked, the plastering began to peel off. The minute ornamental work suffered damages. Though repairs were undertaken as early as 1921, the master restoration initiated in 1991 has given the kirk a new lease of life.
It's been a beautiful structure which has withstood the passage of time. It has its share of challenges in terms of the annular ring. We call that as a dome. Over the past few years, we have noticed a crack which is developed there. And we had to fly in experts from Germany. A couple of them came there on 2 different occasions. We've had to consult with the Indian Institute of Technology, Chennai professors. And based on that, we have put in a ring, an annular ring, with a tensioner arrangement so that we can keep the crack contained. We cannot repair it, but we can contain it. The other challenge that we have been facing is the plastering. It's a lime plaster, lime and clay plaster over the years from that period of time. So that's a big challenge for us to retain the plaster on the walls of the church. But we have a few dedicated members of the church who have worked extensively again with the technological institutes to ensure that we are able to develop an equivalent with the lime and plaster the church and also paint it. And what you see today is a wonderful preservation effort which has gone on, especially the past few decades. Because we thank God for this wonderful people that He has given to us as part of our members.
Also part of the kirk's legacy is the handsome 27-foot-high stained glass painting from Scotland, installed in 1884. This artwork captures 3 beautiful stories on humility and God's faithfulness. Legend has it, St. Andrew was crucified on an X-shaped cross saltire he is shown holding. He told his executioners that he was unworthy to be put to death in the same manner as Christ. This on Jesus' first calling of disciples, Peter and Andrew, when he said he would make them fishers of men. Also, Peter's miraculous escape from Herod's prison, the angel leading him to freedom. The 9-acre Kirk campus is also home for rich flora and fauna, a refreshing lung space with at least 50 species of trees and a good number of birds and insects. True, it's a beautiful church, but this is just a building. What the kirk really is a body of believers who are alive to the needs of the disadvantaged, a sanctuary for the sick and the suffering beyond its walls. The kirk's mission truly lies in its outreach. Since 1982, the Asha project brings hope and dignity to differently abled children and young adults, largely from economically weaker sections. "31-year-old Chitra comes almost every day since she was 1. She has completed schooling. Now she makes eco-friendly paper cups, earns a little stipend, while her parents could eke out their livelihood."
இங்கே வந்து சேர்க்கும்போது அவளுக்கு தலை நிற்கல, நடக்க முடியாது, உட்கார முடியாது, எல்லாத்துக்குமே கொஞ்சம் தலை தொங்கின மாதிரியே இருந்துச்சு அவளுக்கு. இங்கே வந்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் எக்ஸசைஸ் சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்க. கைக்கு எக்ஸசைஸ், காலுக்கு எக்ஸசைஸு, தலை நிற்கிறதுக்கு, நல்லா பேசுறதுக்கு, அவள் எப்படி ஒரே மாதிரி பார்க்கறதுக்கு, எப்படி சாப்பிட்றதுக்கு, இதெல்லாம் இங்கே வந்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் தாங்க சார் கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக ட்ரெயின் பண்ணி சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்கங்க சார். அப்புறமா எழுத படிக்க சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்க. அப்புறம் இந்த கை வேலை சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்க. அவளுடைய வேலையை அவளே செய்துக்கிற அளவுக்கு இங்கே ட்ரைனிங் கொடுத்தாங்கங்க சார். இப்போ வந்து இந்த பிள்ளைங்களை பார்த்து பேசுகிறாங்க சொந்தக்காரங்க. அதுக்கு முன்னாடி ஏன் இந்த மாதிரி குழந்தை பிறந்துச்சுன்னு எங்களை ஒதுக்கப்பட்டவங்கள தான் பார்த்தாங்க சார்.
At this sheltered workshop, many like Gazia put their skills to good use through weaving, screen printing, among others. Asha also serves young people with developmental disorders and mental disabilities with counseling, physiotherapy, vocational training, and employment.
We strive to give them that sense of hope to carry on with their life, to develop their skills so that they can lead a life as normal as possible in this competitive world. So I think Asha is very important because it helps to build people to survive in this social climate.
After studying at Asha for up to 10 years, Manikandan and Suresh were trained and placed at this 2-star hotel in Chennai for housekeeping work. Their supervisors say they do a good job. For over a decade, they lead a life with dignity, now earning around 14,000 rupees a month.
நான் வந்து பெட்டெல்லாம் வந்து நானே டைப் பண்ணி போட்டு நல்லா இது பண்ணிட்டேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து இந்த மேலெல்லாம் க்ளீன் பண்ணிட்டு வந்து இந்த பெட் வைக்க அந்த ஸ்டெட் மேலே க்ளீன் பண்ணி கொடுத்துட்டேன். கண்ணாடிக்கு வந்து கண்ணாடி க்ளீனாக இருக்கணும் க்ளீன் பண்ணிக்கிட்டு கபோர்ட் மேலே வந்து க்ளீன் பண்ணி அந்த டைஸ்லாம் கீழே வந்து நல்லா தேய்ச்சி விட்டு நல்லா க்ளீன் பண்ணி சுத்தமாக அது இருந்து என்னோட வந்து வேலை நல்லா க்ளீன் பண்ண முடியும்.
Manikandan, I'll just tell you, he has been trained to take food from the kitchen to the restaurant for supply. And whenever it comes to kitchen to take food, he will bring the plate, clean plate and bring it. The food will be put on that. Unless the food is covered, he will not pass through the passage. Once he was trained that food should be covered to taken to the table to serve, he will never. If the fellow says, no, you put the covering, otherwise I will not move, he will not move from the place. In the initial stage, Manikandan needed counseling because of this speaking difficulty. They trained him up sign language. When you speak, he will observe the lips. That has been trained by Asha. That's a good thing.
முதல்ல வந்து கொஞ்சம் மந்தமாகவே இருப்பான். சரியாக பேச மாட்டான், செய்ய மாட்டான், எது கேட்டாலும் பதில் சொல்ல மாட்டான். நம்மளா கேட்டு தான் சாப்பாடு போடணும். 13 வயசு வரைக்கும் நான் தான் கக்கூஸ் பண்ணலாம், கழுவி விடுறது செய்கிறது எல்லாம் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். அப்புறம் அங்கே போய் சேர்ந்ததுலேருந்து நிறைய மாற்றம் வந்து ஆஷா ஸ்கூலில் எல்லாமே சொல்லி கொடுத்துருக்குறாங்க. அவங்க மூலியமாக தான் இப்போ இங்கே ஹோட்டலில் வேலைக்கு பார்க்குறாரு. எங்கள் வீட்டுக்காருக்கு, எனக்கு, எங்கள் பொண்ணுக்கு எல்லாருக்குமே ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம். இந்த சம்பளம் வாங்கி அவங்க எங்கள் பொண்ணுடைய பசங்களை இது பண்ணுறான், படிக்க வைக்கிறான்.
For 29-year-old Saddam Hussein, son of a textile worker, the Asha program was transformational. His parents say he is no longer the aggressive boy. His communication has improved. The differently abled youngster won several prizes in national and regional sporting events. He works at the Anna Salai post office and supplements his family's income.
நான் வண்டி போகிறேன், வண்டி எடுத்துகிட்டு போட்டுருவேன். 9 மணி ஆச்சுன்னா பசங்க வருவேன், இல்லைன்னா பசங்க கூட்டு வருவேன், இல்லைன்னா பசங்க வருவேன்.
அதான் அவங்க நல்லா பார்த்துக்கிறாங்க. எல்லாமே சாப்பாடுலேருந்து மேடம், அங்கே இருக்கிற ஆண்டிங்க எல்லாமே அவனுக்கு நல்ல ஒத்துழைப்பு கொடுத்தாங்க.
இவனுக்கு மட்டும் இல்ல,
எல்லா பசங்களுக்கும் நம்ம பிள்ளைங்க
சொல்றேனே, நம்ம வந்து ஒரு பங்கு தான். அதாவது என்ன 99 பங்கு அவங்களோட தான்.
The Kirk's outreach isn't limited to its surroundings alone. 46 kilometers north at Tirupalivanam, this medical mission has treated more than 50,000 poor patients since 1981, serving farmers and fishermen in the area. In the 80s, there was no healthcare facility nearby. The center was opened to reach out to those affected by leprosy. Now, besides general medicine, treatment is given for diabetes, hypertension, and skin ailments by volunteering doctors from the congregation and outside. Besides basic investigations, medicine is given free or at a lower price. Over the years, 39,000 individuals have registered at the clinic. 95-year-old Maria down the street suffers from cough and breathlessness. For many like her, the clinic has been a boon for years.
ஆஸ்பத்திரி என்ன கட்டினாங்களோ அன்னிலேருந்து தான் வரோம். வர டாக்டருங்க அத்தனை பேரும் நல்லா கவனிப்பாங்க. வந்துக்கிற பொண்ணுமா எங்கள் அப்பா ஏற்று எல்லா மாத்திரையும் தருவாங்க. நோய்க்கு என்னென்ன மாத்திரையோ அது தருவோம். எல்லாம் இந்த சைட்ஸு எண்ணு காட்டினாங்களோ அன்னிலேருந்து இதுதான் உடம்பு சோகம். இங்கே வந்தால் ஆண்டவர் அந்த சோகத்தை கொடுத்து.
41-year-old security guard Saravanan has travelled 45 kilometers hoping for a cure for his skin ailment.
மண்டே ஃபோன் போட்டு காட்டேன், இந்த வாரம் டாக்டர் வரேன்ட்டாங்க. அதுதான் நாங்களும் வந்துருக்கோம். இங்கே ஒரு தடவை வந்து போனாவே எந்த நோயாக இருந்தாலும் நல்ல முறையாக இருக்கும்.
Not far away, this center offers a 6-month certificate program in tailoring and embroidery for women for a token 100 rupees every month. Many have found jobs or have turned entrepreneurs. Kasturi, a commerce graduate from a humble background, is now an entrepreneur, designing contemporary outfits. Her parents are daily wagers. She bought a sewing machine with the project's interest-free loan after completing the program.
மாடல் ப்ளவுஸ், சுடிதார், பாவாடை சட்டை, பெட்டிக்கோட் இதில் எல்லாமே நான் தைப்பேன். இது மூலிமா நான் ரொம்ப பயன்பெற்றேன். 2018 நான் முடித்தேன். இந்த 2 வருஷ காலமாக எனக்கு ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக தான் இருந்தது. இதுவரையும் நான் எல்லாருக்கிட்டையுமே வந்து காசு ரொம்ப அதிகமாக கேட்டது கிடையாது. சாதா ப்ளவுஸ்க்கு 60 ரூபா கேட்பேன், லைனிங் வச்சா 120 ரூபா கேட்பேன். அதுக்கு மாடல் கேட்டாங்கன்னா அதுக்கேற்றப்பல நான் காசு கேட்டு வாங்கிப்பேன். நான் எனக்கு ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்குது. எனக்கு ஏதோ ஒரு பொருள் வாங்கினாலும் நம்பி நான் வாங்கலாம். நான் கையில் தொழில் இருக்கே, இதை நம்பி நம்ம யார்கிட்டனா நம்ம இந்த பொருள் வாங்கிட்டு நம்ம தச்சு ப்ளவுஸ் தச்சு கொடுத்துடலான்ற ஒரு நம்பிக்கை எனக்கு இருக்குது.
The Kirk is blessed with a rich musical heritage. The choir and the matte army green and burnished gold pipe organ from England have been an integral part of worship, nurturing musical talent for God's glory for many generations. Accomplished musician, late Padma Shri Handel Manuel, served the Kirk as organist and choir master for more than 50 years. The organ, installed in 1883, 62 years after the church was opened, has been restored to near new condition.
This is something which has been handed over to us for generations. And like we keep this church building, and we restore it and keep it, it's something that has, been given to us. This is one of the things that we use so that we can pass on. And the richness of the music itself, I think there is no other single instrument which would come out so powerfully. I think this is the one instrument which has got the richest sound and tones. Of the church started even before the foundation of the building. So a few years before the foundation, they were singing in this church. And that has carried on, right through. There are 3 different manuals, and then you can play with your feet as well. There is what we call the pedal manual.
"20 kilometers away at Pallavaram, the Kirk also works with this community of more than 100 gypsy families, helping them in education, sanitation, and vocational development since 2011. After a bad phase in life, 24-year-old Ajit has made a turnaround. First, the Kirk helped him to become a driver. Later, he turned into an entrepreneur, supplying packaged drinking water to local communities. Now, he aims high.
சர்ச் மூலிமா ஹெல்ப் பண்ணி ஒரு டிரைவிங் ஸ்கூலில் சேர்த்து விட்டு அங்கே கற்றுக்கிட்டேன். நல்ல டிரைவிங் கற்றுக்கிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறமா லைசன்ஸ் எடுத்தேன். அதுக்கப்புறமா ஒரு 3 மாதம் வந்து கடையில் ஓட்டினேன். இந்த டாடா ஏசி தான் ஓட்டினேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் 3 மாதம் பொறுத்து திருப்பி பேட்ஜ் போட்டு கொடுத்தாங்க. அதுக்கும் அவங்க தான் ஹெல்ப் பண்ணாங்க. ரொம்ப கடினமாக உழைக்கிறேன் இதை மாதிரி வாங்கணும் அப்படின்னு, இதை விட கொஞ்சம் பெரிய வண்டியாக வாங்கணும் அப்படின்னு ரொம்ப கடுமையாக உழைக்கிறேன். ஏதோ ஓரளவுக்கு சேர்த்து வைக்கிறேன். இன்னும் யாராவது ஹெல்ப் பண்ணால் கண்டிப்பாக வாங்குவேன். கண்டிப்பாக கர்த்தர் சித்தம், கண்டிப்பாக வாங்குவேன்.
9 years after their marriage, Selvam and Madhuri are blessed with their bundle of joy, Avantika. The couple selling ornamental flowers suffered stigma all those years they were childless. The church helped them with treatment.
அவங்க பண்ண காலம்லாம் மறக்க மாட்டேன். அந்த மாதிரி அவங்க கொடுத்துருக்குறாங்க. உண்மையாக கத்தருக்கு நாமத்தி சோத்திரம். அவங்க சொல்கிற நன்றிக்கு நான் என்ன சொல்ல முடியும், அந்த மாதிரி இருக்குது எனக்கு.
எல்லா பேரும் அசிங்கமாக எல்லா பேரும் குழந்தை இல்லை, நீ மல்லடி, நீ கோடி இது எல்லா பேரும் ஆண்டவர் எங்களுக்கு தரும், எப்போ ஒரு அடி தரும் ஆண்டவர் எங்களுக்கு. அந்த மாதிரி தந்தாங்க அவந்திகமாக ஒரு குழந்தை.
சோத்திரம்.
Manjal Martha's parents had planned to drop her out of school after class 8 for early marriage. But they had a change of heart after the Kirk team appealed to them. She has now completed class 12.
ஸ்காலர்ஷிப் கொடுத்தாங்க, புக்கு நோட்டு எல்லாத்தையும் வாங்கி கொடுத்தாங்க படிக்கிறதுக்குன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. ஸ்கூலுக்கு போயிட்டு வந்துட்டாலும் நல்லா படிமா, நல்லா ஸ்கூல் போமா அப்படின்னு ஆர்வம் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. மற்றவங்க ஸ்கூல் போகாத படிக்காத வியாபாரத்துக்கு போ அப்படின்னு சொன்னாலும் சர்ச்சு மூலியமாக எங்கள் அப்பா அம்மா கிட்ட பேசுவாங்க. பசங்களை படிக்க வைங்க, பசங்களை இப்படி பண்ணுங்க, அவங்களுக்கு நல்லா லைஃப் இருக்குது அப்படியெல்லாம் சொல்லுவாங்க எங்கள் பாஸ்டர்.
On the slums of Satyavani Nagar in the heart of Chennai, this center is the only hope for many little children from poor backgrounds to avert dropping out of school. Here they could complete homework, take tuition, do some extra reading, and even have dinner. As they grow up, they also learn life lessons and leadership and get support for college. Jency had studied here. Now she is pursuing BCom, the first in her family to study in a college.
When I was 7 years old in 2007, I was admitted in AKCDC. Till my second standard, I'm feeling very shy to participate in anything. But after entering AKCDC, my life changed. I am provided with food every day and my educational fees are taken care.
Over the years, the St. Andrew's Kirk Child Development Center has helped nearly 700 children. The brainchild of late presbyter Reverend Mackenzie, from 1973, the Riber Memorial Daycare Center on campus provides nutritious diet and play school education for little children in the slums around the church so they could have a start. Over the years, the program also trains mothers waiting on campus in tailoring, embroidery, leatherwork, and even spoken English to enhance their employment prospects.
I also learned spoken English in through RMDCE. I can speak simple sentence in English. I am happy about it.
நான் வாங்குற சேலரி வந்து எனக்கு தன்னம்பிக்கையாக இருக்கிறதுக்கு எனக்கு உதவி. ஏன்னா நான் ஒரு பெண்ணாக இருக்கிறதுனால வெளியிலலாம் போய் என்னால் மற்ற இடத்துல போய் வேலை பார்க்கறத விட இங்கே வேலை பார்க்கறது எனக்கு ஒரு சேஃப்டி. அதனால எனக்கு வந்து ரொம்ப தன்னம்பிக்கையாக இருக்கேன் நான்.
The program has touched around 3,500 children and 1,500 mothers. The pandemic did not dampen the spirit of teachers. Though classes remained suspended, they switched to online mode so their underprivileged students could catch up at home. This community of around 40 Irulas hardly had anything when the government rescued them from years of bonded labor at a private quarry in Thiruvannamalai district in 2012. It was then the Kirk reached out with food and essential supplies to help them rebuild their lives at this site in Ullavur, 66 kilometers south of Chennai. Local people wouldn't let these traditional snake catchers use their taps. The Kirk also brought potable water to the community, working with authorities.
இதை விட எங்களுக்கு என்ன சார் வேணும்? நாங்கள் முத கேட்டது என்னன்னாக்கா தண்ணி தான் கேட்டோம். எங்களுக்கான முக்கிய தேவை என்னன்னாக்கா தண்ணி தான். அந்த தண்ணியை அவங்க பண்ணி கொடுத்தாங்க. அதுக்கப்புறம் எங்களுக்கான பாத்திரம் வாங்கி கொடுத்தாங்க. இதை விட எங்களுக்கு என்ன தேவை சார் வேணும்? இதுவே எங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப மகிழ்ச்சியாக இருக்குது, ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமாகவும் இருக்குது. இதை நாங்கள் எங்களால் என்றைக்குமே மறக்கவே முடியாது.
In the late 70s, the Kirk stretched its hands to a community afflicted by leprosy at Balaramapuram, 11 kilometers away from the Kirk. Often ostracized, besides medical help and taking care of the academic needs of the children, the church also got them a site from the government. Through its projects over the last 200 years, the Kirk has reached out to help the helpless, reach the needy, those challenged, marginalized, and oppressed, showing God's love in action.
This is a long journey we take to sit and transform, take the love in action. Sometimes, some places, it's about a skill we sit and teach with them. Sometimes it's about a lifestyle change. Sometimes it's about rescuing them from the bondage of addiction of alcohol or a domestic violence situation. It varies a lot. So the centrality of the mission is the love of Jesus that we want to share with everyone so that they would experience that love and they would taste this love of Jesus in their own lives.
So the Kirk isn't just a building. Beyond its rich history and architecture, we glimpse the goodness of God in the lives that have been touched. The love shared. The communities built. Above all, St. Andrew's Church exalts Jesus Christ in the sanctuary and beyond. God has blessed us with churches around Chennai at Kwasapur, Tirupalaivanam, SM Nagar,
ஆராதனை
பொல்லாவரம்
தேவமைந்தனே உமக்கு ஆராதனை.
பலராமபுரம்
நீர் கொடுத்த இடத்திற்காக நன்றி சுவாமி, நீர் கொடுத்த உணவுக்காக நன்றி சுவாமி, உடைக்காக நன்றி இயேசப்பா.
காரனோடை and Avarivakkam. We follow the command of Jesus. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And lo, I am with you always to the close of the age. So, do we stop at 200 years? No. As we gratefully reflect on 200 years of the Kirk and God's goodness, let's ask ourselves, will we continue to be a channel for God's love, sowing the hope of Christ and transforming lives with grace? What will our legacy be?